Okay. Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome to this new initiative of us where we are trying to record and speak to IRMAns and understand their journey and how IRMA has impacted their lives so far. Uh, I am Shreyus here, and here with me today is Mathew Cherian. Mathew Cherian, I'll just give a brief introduction about him. He is a civil engineer and an alumni of BITS Pilani and from the first batch of IRMA. He is an author of books and development worker for 4 decades. He has set up Credibility Alliance and Guidestar India for transparency in the voluntary sector. He also has set up Charities Aid Foundation in India and worked with HelpAge India as CEO for 18 years and is now the global ambassador for aging with HelpAge International. His latest book is on aging and poverty in India, a member of the World Economic Forum Council on Aging and Longevity. Currently, he is also the chair of Care India. Happy to have you with us, sir, here, and hoping this conversation is.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great to talk to IRMA. Yeah, because we are from the PRM0 or PRM1 batch. So
Yeah.
whatever you can call it. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, before we go on to even IRMA, I would like to know how your early life was and what happened before IRMA, and then we can just progress towards IRMA and so on.
Actually, during my study in BITS Pilani, I got involved with a group of NSS volunteers to work in a village which was about 11 kilometers from Pilani. And it was in the desert. And for the first time in my life, I come from a very urban background. I come from Chennai. And I had not seen anything like this. And of course, I was completely shell shocked seeing the conditions of people there. And then we started doing work there. We built a school for the children there. We also built a water harvesting pond, which is called Nadi in Rajasthan. And so we started doing this. And then slowly I started getting more involved in rural areas. So subsequently, after completing my engineering, I started doing work in Mumbai and again got involved with people who work in rural development. And of course, Sanjoy Ghosh from the first batch was also my friend from Bombay. And we said we should go to IRMA to study. And IRMA was just starting. And then that is how we came to IRMA. And that is how the journey started. So it was a slow shift which went on from the Pilani days on to work with rural people. And then there was no turning back.
In fact, I was just going to ask you what was your motivation to join IRMA, and and what made you take that unconventional shift in your career. Uh, so that was one thing.
Actually, at that point of time, Sanjoy and me were discussing in Mumbai, and we felt that it's better to do something a little more practical in rural management. I come with an engineering degree, and he came with an economics degree, and I think none of it qualified us to work in rural areas. We had emotional connect, but we didn't have any practical skills, I would say. So we thought, let's do it. And it was like, if we are so interested in rural people, I thought we should do something. So that is how it led us to IRMA. And then there were, as I said, then one feature went on to another feature. And IRMA, the contract said they used to pay us quite a hefty sum of 1,000 rupees per month. And this was quite large in those days, and we had to sign a bond to work with the cooperatives for 3 years. So then we worked with cooperatives. So I went to work in Madhya Pradesh in something called Oil Fed, the MP Cooperative Oil Seeds Development. And then we worked there for 3 years. But what happened is there I was the manager of farmers organization. And so forming cooperatives and procuring soybean from the districts and various kinds of things. It was a very interesting job, but we were completely, after 3 years, quite disillusioned with the way the organization was progressing. Cooperatives have their own lacuna. They have too much of government interference, and whatever you wanted to do couldn't be done, and there were all kinds of interference. I won't go into the detail. It ranged from recruitment to corruption and all kinds of things. So it was not a. So that made me go into the voluntary sector and to look at NGOs as a kind of field to work in. And I think the same trajectory happened with Sanjoy also, where he moved also into non-governmental organizations. So that is how we moved from the cooperative sector to the, not that the cooperative sector was not exciting, the people needed it, but the organizational structure couldn't handle it. So that was the limitation.
Okay. Nice to hear this. The journey you've taken from cooperative to NGOs. But I would like to just take a step back, and if you could please take us through your journey at IRMA, the memories you made at IRMA, the ethos and values which IRMA has instilled, which probably other schools couldn't have. Something on those lines.
Yeah. Actually, at IRMA, we were the first guinea pigs, if you may say. And our classroom also used to be in something called the Animal Veterinary Lab. And it was called Diagnostic Lab. And our classroom was basically inside the lab. And so the guinea pig was a real possibility, and that is how it started working. But we had very good professors. We had somebody called Dr. Shrikant Samrani, who was quite an idealist, and he instilled quite a lot of values in us for rural development. And Dr. Kurian, of course, we used to call him God, and Dr. Kurian used to come and lecture to us. The first batch had a very great share of listening to Kurian, interacting with Kurian, and so he used to keep talking to us and telling how he started the whole cooperatives in Amul and the challenges he faced. And this was, it made him almost like a demigod, and if not God, at least a demigod. And we all started becoming kind of accepting him as a role model. And we said, if we had to do something, we have to do something like Kurian. So that is the kind of inspiration he was. And also at the same time, we had one professor, I think he's no more. His name was Professor Nagabrahma. And he later on went to become the director of TAPI Management Institute. And I think he's, and so what has happened is he was also quite instrumental in talking about rural values and organizational culture and what to build up, etc. And these lessons were quite valuable to us in later stage, because when we started going into organizations, these lessons became extremely valuable. And at the same time, people also started looking up to us, that here were a set of managers who were managing differently. We were not like the bureaucrats, or we were not like even I would say the IIM graduates who were our peers at that stage. And IRMA was a unique kind of experience. And I would say the experience is because of the values and because of the practical aspects that we learned in college. And even now, of course, if you ask my colleagues, they would say that these were a bunch of different guys. Wherever I worked, they have said that his style of management is totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to know how IRMA was then. It's hard to visualize for me now because obviously there are some changes. But
Yeah.
I also wanted to I was just coming to this next question, and I wanted to understand how IRMA played a crucial role when you were leading organizations and when you were in the senior leadership position. How IRMA played a pivotal role during those stages.
Yeah. And especially in organizing farmers or organizing people, and even in NGOs, we organize people into associations. May not be cooperatives, maybe different structures, but we used a lot of team building skills. We used a lot of uh, what shall I say, empowerment skills, so that whether it is senior citizens or whether it is farmers, so that they can articulate their needs and they can come up with their own solutions. At the end of it, you're only a guiding force, you're only a facilitator, but ultimately they have to come up with their own solutions. And this was a very helpful process which we learned in IRMA, how to facilitate, how to build teams, how to organize, whether it was farmers or senior citizens or even other groups of people. Yeah. So this is something which we learned at IRMA. And the other area which is one of empathy with people, and I would say maybe today, of course, they give it a jargon called emotional quotient and EQ, etc. Actually, frankly, when we studied, these words were not there. Of course, IQ was there, but EQ was never there. But later on, putting it into perspective, we felt that EQ was more necessary than IQ. So we may not have been the greatest people with IQ, but we definitely had high EQ.
Definitely. One more thing I just wanted to add was, so today we study a lot of jargons like triple bottom line and ESG and all of that. I think
Yeah,
it's wonderful that, just 40 years back, IRMA started all of this when it was not mainstream. So,
yeah, definitely. All these were not in the line of thinking of most people. And many people, even in IIM, said they would have been happy. Those who are now working in rural areas, they would have been happy if they had gone through IRMA rather than the IIM. So I think, but of course, IRMA has also failed to project its brand. And that is, of course, something which the director and the administration has to look in, because they they don't seem to be communicating. Because, and though of course Amul is a fairly good brand, and HelpAge also is a fairly well-known brand, we have spent a lot of time in brand communication. That is why people know the work and people know that. So IRMA also needs to adopt a strategy of communication. And all you youngsters are in social media, so IRMA's social media handle is fairly poor, whether it is on Twitter or whether it is on LinkedIn or various kinds of things. So people, I think some of the alumni have better handles than IRMA itself. Like,
Definitely. So that's why this initiative as well to try to showcase IRMA through the light through our alumni.
yeah.
Anyway, so the next thing is, if you could help us understand the key achievements and roles you have held so far throughout your life. It would be nice to just have a glimpse of your professional journey so far with achievements.
Actually, in the non-profit sector, and I I have managed to uh, create certain values like accountability and transparency, and was involved along with other people to set up things like the Credibility Alliance so that we have some standards of transparency and accountability. And today, many people are following such standards. And uh, have spent a lot of time in advocacy and talking to government about the sector itself. Uh, I I used to chair Vani, which is a voluntary action network in India, and also tried to lobby for the tax laws, for the various kinds of laws. And so these are some things which we pioneered. And in 1997, I set up Charities Aid Foundation. And Charities Aid Foundation was the first time we pioneered payroll giving in India. And payroll giving was not there in India. And we started doing it with companies. And now there are lakhs and lakhs of employees on payroll giving. And they contribute small sums like 100 rupees, etc., per month. But it multiplies into huge for huge donations for the voluntary agencies for supporting. And so it gave people choice. It was small amounts, and at the same time, it created a new stream of revenue for people. And so these are, I emphasized that most nonprofits have to spend time in local fundraising because there is extreme need for raising money in India. Because along with raising money, people also get convinced about your cause. And so, as a result of it, I spend a lot of time training people in fundraising, how to raise money, and also how to build your own brand, how to project yourself in the public domain so that you can do the work. It is not just blowing your own trumpet, but at the same time it is showing the public that what you're doing is of value to them. So unless we can create a value addition in the public mind, then there will be much more traction for the voluntary sector. And I would say today I'm a great votary of the voluntary sector, and I feel in 75 years, voluntary sector has contributed to the nation, and it is a substantial contribution. It is not both in terms of innovation, both in terms of even in terms of value. You mentioned about triple bottom line and things like that. So many of them are now cooperating with companies to implement CSR, etc. This would not have been possible if the right kind of environment was created in the sector. So, looking back, I would say these are some things which have been pioneered, and hopefully someday it will be of use to most of the people in the sector.
Definitely. Just adding on to this, I just want to understand if you have any message for the young people or all the aspirants who are joining to IRMA as to how they should look at the voluntary sector, and then how they should look at this for the next 20-25 years and so on.
Actually, the sector is working in almost many areas of the Indian social sector. It ranges from health, education, arts and culture, livelihoods, and advocacy and legal affairs, various kinds of things. So many areas, especially in India, are still, they call it, of course, aspirational districts, but they are like, you can call them the poorest districts in the country. There is need for people who go through IRMA to set up their own non-profit organizations in these areas and experiment with it. Like Sanjoy, when he went to Bikaner district, it was completely desert-like. There was not even a health center in the vicinity, etc. Then there, lot of innovation has been done both in health, in livelihoods, in crafts and artisanal kind of thing. So he has been able to create that kind of thing, and so on. Many other people have also in the sector created, and so the youngsters should try to innovate and create this in areas which need it. And I would say in 75 years, we have still not solved the poverty issue. We have still not solved many, many issues. And many parts of our country are quite backward. In my engineering, when I saw the first village, I was completely shocked. And even now, I would say there are many parts of India which I have traveled, which is still quite quite backward, needs people from IRMA to come there and do their own innovation. They may create new models, they may create new techniques, and the field is completely open. So let's move in and innovate and create value for people in this country.
Yeah, just a second. So yeah, I think there was some network issue. Yeah, I heard you most, and I understand that there's a need for an innovation, and a lot of talent has to go in as well, to mostly to create and be the leaders in this space. And so I which leads me to a next question as well. uh why do you think, or sorry, or what do you think about, having more institutions like IRMA in this country, and the need for more institutions like IRMA in this country?
There is need for more institutions like IRMA. And for example, there's a need for an IRMA in Bihar. There's a need for an IRMA in Chhattisgarh. There is probably a need for IRMA in the Northeast, maybe in areas like either Upper Assam or even Nagaland or Mizoram, etc. So there is the South is fairly well developed, but there are the North and the East. There are quite a few areas which need. So maybe IRMA can do some pioneering work and set up such institutions there, because then you can create people who will be the future rural managers who will work in these areas and create development for these areas. So it's something which we need to work on, and probably in the next few years we can get some great creations like that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was great hearing you, sir. Any closing remarks or thoughts on overall IRMA, your life, your journey, your companions, etc.?
My, of course, closing remarks will be like, I worked a lot in the field of aging, and I found the young abandoning the old, especially in the families. So many children, as they grow up, either they migrate or they don't stay with their parents. That in a way is all right, but abandoning them, not looking after them is, I would say, not part of our culture and part of our society. So my advice would be that people, youngsters passing out from IRMA, continue to look after their parents and continue to see that they are not abandoned, so that agencies like HelpAge will not have to look after them, because life in an old age home, however good it is not like life in a family. So life in a family is much more rewarding and much more supportive than in an old age home. So I would expect most of you to look after your own parents.
Yeah, definitely, sir. I think this is a wonderful message to all the young people who are aspiring to go abroad and work. But yeah, this is definitely a needed advice.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've had several opportunities to go abroad, both, but I desisted because of my parents, and it's and it was much more rewarding to do this than go abroad. So
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so wonderful. Thank you
thank you.
for participating in this. And we will send across this recording to you shortly with
Yeah,
whatever our final outcome is.